Welcome to Choose the Nickel. I'm your host, George Bailey. My co-founder and technical support is the gorgeous Christina Bailey. This podcast is about giving kids financial freedom. We're interviewing fascinating people for their insights about how children learn to be financially savvy. Our guests come from diverse, sometimes conflicting schools of thought, and we love the opportunity to learn from them. We encourage all to weigh our guests' ideas on how to help children thrive, both financially and in general. We invite you to visit our website at www.choosethenickel.com, subscribe to our newsletter, and try out the things we are learning on the podcast. Our next episode features Michele Malo. Michele is an Amazon best-selling author, speaker, master connector, and business expert. She is the master marketing consultant at Michele Malo, Your Business Accelerator, where she identifies, strategizes, and advances businesses by breaking down barriers through communication. Michele pulls from 18 years of Fortune 500 corporate experience and 5 years of being a successful serial entrepreneur to help accelerate her clients' profits within a year of taking on her program. Ladies and gentlemen, Michele Malo. Michele Malo, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
So, first of all, it was really a pleasure to meet you in person in Chicago and get to know you. And one of the questions that I've got for you is, what are your favorite professional accomplishments?
Oh, I love it. That question is so fun. And I always want to go back a little bit to the education piece of it because it did so much for me professionally. I have an international master's degree, but what's so cool about that is I actually studied at Cambridge. I studied in Brazil, in China, in Thailand, where you actually worked with real business owners. So you had to understand not only strategy and business acumen, but the culture and the different ways of looking at target markets. So everyone's like, oh, well, an MBA, that's great, a dime a dozen. I'm like, not when you travel the world to get it. It allowed me to work for one company, which was called Choli, and they're the wine in the box people.
Yeah.
But what they really do is they do packaging that's safer. So I was in charge of opening the Asia Pacific market. So I got to go to India, Hong Kong, and all these different places to really try to up their packaging so it's safer, if it's safer for them. So it's a food safety issue.
Yeah.
So not only was it kind of neat, but just again, to work with the McDonald's and Coca-Colas and that all across the world, especially in Asia, was definitely something that enhanced everything that I do in business, also working for the different Fortune 500 companies. And I was the cracker lady and the hot dog lady for Oscar Mayer and all that kind of stuff. Got to, help work the Wienermobile.
Yeah.
So just a lot of, even though sometimes corporate gets a bad rap. And again, I did get out of corporate, about 5-6 years ago, but it just laid the groundwork for so much learning and so much education and meeting people all over the world. I feel very blessed that I was able to do that.
And to be clear, your responsibility really was one of marketing and making sure that these brands, when they were sent abroad, were done, sent abroad properly.
Yeah, we definitely worked on all the brand imaging and all of that, but I did all of the business unit stuff. So not only marketing, but also being able to make sure financially and just with sales and all across the board that we represented correctly and we were able to find the correct fit for all of our customers, which was more in the food service realm. So your restaurants and hotels, everything that served outside of the grocery store. So whenever you go out of your house, whether it's school or a restaurant, those were the clients I was helping make sure that they were successful, utilizing amazing worldwide brands.
Awesome. If you could attribute those terrific accomplishments to an experience you had as a child, what would that experience look like?
It really does go back to, I come from a divorced family, and my mom instilled in me to always depend on me and never have to worry upon anyone else to make sure that I'm safe and successful and financially stable. So I always kind of look back at, what my mom instilled in me, her little envelopes, where she would budget her money and she would struggle a little bit, and she worked all her life. Amazing. My best friend, incredible. But she instilled in me this desire to be able to search out better ways of doing things. I always get in trouble in corporate. That's part of why I left, because I always looked at things outside of the box. What are different ways we could be looking at it? And I don't even saying the whole cliche term outside of the box is probably not great, right? But when you look at, as an example, working at, when I worked for Kellogg's and I did the Nabisco and Keebler and whatnot, but really at Kellogg's with the Keebler brand, they're like, bring back the cracker basket, in terms of marketing. I'm like, in a world that's all customized and things like that, what would my mom do? How do we use that differently? How, what is the goals? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you start with the end in mind, you are always going to come to a better place, as opposed to doing what everyone thinks you should do. You just break the mold and go forward. And that really was my hardworking mom and I, back when I was a kiddo, really helped attribute a lot of these professional accomplishments, because she always said working hard and looking at things differently is what's going to get you ahead.
You mentioned this idea of starting with the end in mind. And I think that that's a very powerful business principle.
Yes.
But also one that might be a little bit abstract for kids to grasp. And I'm trying to think of how would you do that? And what do you think it was about your mom's way of raising you that got you to kind of understand that deeper principle?
Well, here's what's so funny. I actually have an example from my childhood that'll explain this perfectly. I grew up in a very cool neighborhood in Chicago, like in the city. And there were 5 of us girls that were inseparable. I'm talking, we were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And when I say think of the end in mind, we would every year save money so that we could either go to a water park or we could go to the zoo. And that was the end in mind. That was the goal. Like, we wanted to go to the zoo, but we wanted to be independent. So we raised our own money. We looked at how much would it cost to go to the water park for all of us to pay and to be able to bring our Wonder Bread, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and be able to do this. So we did lemonade stands. We actually ran what we called the kids carnival, where we made up games and the kids from the neighborhood came and we'd give. And when
you organized the kids carnival?
We did. We organized the kids carnival.
Okay,
we shoveled snow. But we did all that knowing exactly how much money we were going to need for our big outing at the end, at the end of the summer. And we were under 10 years old doing all these things. So that's why, if you think about what do you really want, or, if you're saving up for, a baseball mitt or $1, whatever it is, if that's what you want, how are you going to get there? How are you going to save your allowance? How are you going to save or work with other people to really, or work with your mom and dad to figure out how you're going to, get to that where it's not just being handed to you, but it's something that you'll cherish because you earned it on your own.
How exciting was this carnival? I mean, are we talking about dancing bears, or what was the extent of the...
No. That's so cute. The extent of it. So no, it was more like games. So more like a fun fair, but we called it the kids carnival. And we set up everything from, Bozo buckets, where you'd have to, get the ping pong ball in. We would take our big wheels, turn them upside down and make them a wheel.
Nice.
and then spin it, and we would get, and the prizes were things that we would actually give up, like stuffed animals we never played with. We'd go get penny candy from the store. We would have, our hula hoops. We'd have hula hoop contests, and the whole neighborhood. And like I said, it was us 5 girls, but, we let the boys come for that one. I mean, we even set up haunted houses and did plays for the neighborhood just to be creative and have fun. And, for $1 or 50 cents, you come in and see our play, or, for a nickel, you could play the game and win. It was fun.
Let's break it down, though. Let's break it down. First of all, I love this. And I have 2 follow-up questions about this fair, because there's a lot to work with here. First of all, did you make a profit?
We did. Always.
Always. And the second, which is going to feed into that, you'll see how, if you could analyze the characteristics and the talents of your 4 other playmates, how did you 5 come together to make this thing work? In other words, what were the skills that each of you individually brought to the table?
That is a great question. And First of all, let me explain how we made a profit.
Yeah.
We actually did a couple different things. One of which is we did other things like raking leaves and shoveling snow. And so we would have a little bit of money so that we could invest, like I said, in penny candy or whatever that was. So
you got to spend money to make money.
Exactly right. Just a little bit. But then we also, like I said, had things that we would donate that were our stuffed animals, things that we won that we would give away that we weren't using anymore, more that other kids would think were cool and would find interesting. But it takes a team. And that's just like in business now. And the teamwork and being able to get along and listen to other people's ideas is so critical. So the one girl and her sisters, Mary, was kind of the ringleader. She was very, very strong. She was this is how it's going to be done. I think she could do that because two of them were her sisters, right? So
younger sisters, I take it.
Yes, okay. Younger sisters for sure.
I mean, it's not impossible. I've seen my younger ones persuade my older ones to do things, but usually it does work. That's the way the power dynamic works within sibling relationships. But yeah, okay.
And I was actually a little bit older, and not by much, but back, when you're a kiddo, 6 months is a lot, so
6 months is that's authority.
Yeah. So I was that strategic. I don't want to say it was the brains behind but I always said, well, here's what we needed to do. I was the organizer. I was the strategy. Okay, well, here's I always had a knack for it.
So if Mary was creating the vision, you were more into execution.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding how it would have to run. So operations.
Operations. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. If we're going to throw in, and also the strategy of how we needed to get it done. And because I was always the peacemaker. So amongst the siblings, and we had another gal too, who was more of an executioner type. But, I tried to keep the peace when when things started to go awry. But then we had, like I said, then you have to have people who enjoy just being part of something. That was a lot of fun. So two of the other girls were very good and loved doing that. And then the littlest one, her name was Maureen, but we called her Mo. She's adorable. And she was the one she was kind of like our marketing person because you couldn't say no to this little thing. And she was like, come on. And she would be the one pulling things in, and because she was just everyone, and they're all adorable, but she was the one that kind of was the face.
So let me ask you regarding Mo, were you aware that was why you were choosing her? Or was it just you so happened to choose her and she did what she did well because she was small? Or was it you as small girls were like, oh, she's totally going to kill this thing because she's adorable?
Yeah, no, we knew. Yeah, it was so over the top. And again, I was quite a bit older than her because again, she was number 3 and I was closest to the older gal, Mary, who was the leader. So she was kind of like my little sister, and everyone just always wanted to hold her and pick her up, and because she was just always smart, and she's still that way. By the way, she is just absolutely adorable. Seeing her as a mom now is so fun.
So okay, I would tell you what I would do in this situation. At this point, okay, so you pinpoint the cutest member of the group, the one who has that quality about her, but then you really play it up. You put bows in her hair, and you put overalls on her or whatever, whatever you think is going to be really cute to the adults. Did you find yourselves doing anything like that to her?
We absolutely did, and we also used her so people wouldn't leave and spend more money. Because she would come and then she would pull them, aside and bring them to the different games and kind of be that master of ceremonies almost. So taken to the different games. So as people were leaving, where are you going? And trying to get them to stay a little longer. She would be the one that would go to get the rest of the kids to bring, well, come bring your brothers and sisters, bring your friends. And yeah, she played it up.
You got it. You got to use it.
That's just it. And when we had to, her little brother, even his family's just adorable in general. And, and then he was like our little mascot. So, then you bring in the little Jimmy factor. I mean, he was just a little cutie patootie, and it was a win all the way around. I mean, I'm talking with all the stuff we would do throughout a year, not just the carnival. That was our big money maker, but we probably brought in, I want to say, close to $200.
Wow.
For kids under 10. But that was always enough, like I said, the end in mind, to get us to the kiddie land or the water park or the zoo. We always knew exactly what we needed. And then if there was extra, maybe to 7-Eleven for a Slurpee, like our parents would take us, with
that
all of the change that we would dump out.
The life. The life. I love it. I love it. You mentioned earlier that your mom would put cash in envelopes. Tell me a little bit about that. What was her purpose? What did you learn from it?
I always learned, like anytime my mom would get paid or, with child support from my dad, she was very meticulous in making sure that it wasn't a paycheck to paycheck. So if something were to come up, she had and they were just the little white envelopes that was food, that was, clothing, or was mortgage, whatever that was. And it was just one of those things within the top drawer of the dresser, but it was so organized. And she also taught me what it was to give just everything, because sometimes things would come up, she might not eat lunch or something because, we got a field trip that came up that they needed $10 for. And sometimes it did get that tight. But if she didn't have a system at all, she might have been going without lunch a lot. You know what I'm saying? This is obviously not what it always was like, but because she was so organized, it just always worked out. I never, as a kid, now that I look back, I knew that it was, tight, but I never realized, I never wanted for anything, if that makes sense. She would always make sure that, there was always, my great grandma actually was my nanny when my mom had to go back to work. And a great grandma was cook dinner every day, would help my mom with laundry. My grandma, it was 4 generations, getting through all of it together. And it just shows how family and that unit is so important, and having a plan and a backup plan and people in your court that can make sure that things are taken care of. So, a lot of times you want to be a lone wolf, or you can do it on your own. Always be okay with asking for help and having the people around you that's going to support you for that. And so, like I said, the system was the envelopes, but what made the plan were the people and the family that we had around us.
You mentioned that your mom taught you a lot of these things and about what it means to grow up and to be independent. Could you share with me something your mom did with you that was very self-affirming?
It's a good question. Well, she always was proud of me. And it's the little things, a lot of times. And it was always the words. And she would always take the time to look at my homework or look at my projects or come to Girl Scouts. And because I was always one of those people that was an overachiever. So the patches and, all the different.
You could never have too many patches. Man, when I was a Boy Scout, that was the thing.
And just helping me, sell the cookies, and I don't want to forget my dad here too, because my dad also, he's a veteran. He was part of my life. He went back to night school to help, with the family. And then he was a sales guy, and he always was at things for me too. But what he taught me was that it's never too late to get an education. It's, even though things didn't work out, to try to make amends and still have a great relationship with me. And even to help my mom as, much as possible there too. So it's just super important. Like I said, the people in your life. And I always saw my dad as the sales guy and how he made things happen. He would bring me to work. I knew a lot of the other sales guys, and he would show me around work, and he would show me what he did every day, which I thought was super cool. I got to play on the adding machine and, all this stuff back in the day. These kiddos probably don't know what an adding machine is now, but it was a lot of fun. And he involved me in his work and what he did. And always made sure if I had a baseball game, or because he had more, like I said, a salesman's job, he would always show up and be there. Because again, my mom was more of a 9 to 5. So it was a little harder for her to get to some of the stuff during the day, but it didn't matter. Like I said, we made it work.
Did your dad teach you anything specifically about sales?
Well, the biggest thing my dad always said was to be yourself and to be nice. He said, you don't have to push anything, because if you have a good product and you honestly listen, people will buy from you. I mean, my dad has since retired, but what was so interesting to see, because my dad actually survived cancer 2 different times, the outpouring of even his customers. just proved that in sales, it doesn't have to be the used car salesman idea where it's, there's lying and you're trying to see who's going to get the upper hand. There really can be win-win. And if you're nice and you listen and you do what you say you're going to do.
And you watched your dad do what he said he was going to do. Do you have a specific recollection of that?
I do. Because my family in general, I'm very blessed. As my dad would say, because again, divorced and it was hard. But if dad was going to be at Girl Scouts, he would pick me up. He was Johnny on the spot. If I needed him, he was there. He was the only dad at Girl Scouts, helping, being the chaperone, school trips. If they're needed, he would step in all the time, because when it came down to it, if I needed him, he was there. He always did what he said he was going to do for me. So that I have to always give props. And my mom was the same way. And my grandparents, like I said, if you know, and you have that trust that they're not going to let you down, that's everything. And that's why I try to live my life. And if I can, or something's happened, just be honest and straightforward, because things happen.
Yeah.
People go through things, and just be really nice and explain the situation. Because as an example, I had a very dear friend pass away last week. So
sorry to hear that.
No, I appreciate that. But it was a hard week. And so some things fell through the cracks. But, being vulnerable and being able to tell the folks, I'm sorry, I just wasn't able to adult that day because it was very harsh news. Everyone understood it. Don't avoid it. Just let folks know what's going on with you. I mean, you don't have to, don't burden people with it. But just, if you give folks a notion of what's happening, people are very understanding. Just be honest.
And I found that to be very true in the professional world. And I think that if you've kept the account going, and you have fed that account of trust, then when the moment comes, when the chaos comes for you, when the trial, the hurt comes for you, people come around. And I think that that's wonderful. You mentioned that when you would go visit your dad's office, that you would be able to play on the machine, but you also said something about his colleagues. Mm-hmm. But what was their reaction to you being in the office?
Well, I was a good kid.
Weren't we all?
They would always come over and talk with me and introduce themselves. And again, they were friends of the family too. So I knew a lot of these gentlemen. Like we would go to, cause again, sales folks. So we went to baseball games, and I think my dad originally wanted a boy because he gave me my first mitt. We went to the baseball game. I'm teasing. I love everything about my sports problem I have. But yeah, I got to really know them. And it was just a very comfortable situation. But I will say, when my dad would be like, okay, I need you to stay here, I stayed there. So I wasn't running around. I wasn't in, because he said, he's like, okay, there's people working. So, and he would get me a snack, or he would do whatever. But I did listen and made sure that I wasn't disruptive to the environment, especially when he would tell me that.
That's good. I just wonder about how it is that we influence our own kids, of course, is my primary question. But then I think about how our friends influence our kids as well, and our, fellow professionals. And, I've brought kids into the office and whatnot. And I always love seeing when my colleagues kind of understand, like, oh yeah, George is a dad. And when they treat my kids with respect and not being annoyed or anything like that, it means a lot, and of course I don't want to overcapitalize on that. I think that there would be a time where it's like, listen, this is not a daycare, but at the same time, it certainly teaches the kid.
Well, it does. And it wasn't all the time, because again, being the, and a lot of times it might be on a Saturday or something when he had me, and he'd have to run in to get something done. So it wasn't a full office full of people. But my dad was also proud of me, and he wanted the admins to see me, because he talked about me all the time. Even as an adult, I met him at work a couple times, because they're like, "Oh, you're the Michele," because he would have all my business cards, because he was always
isn't that reassuring though? That really, like, his private life bleeds into his work life and vice versa in a good harmony. I like that.
It was, and I'll answer what also was, you asked about the other colleagues. I wanted a job like that. Like, how fun that you could go to the ball games and you could talk and it didn't seem stuffy. And And even like when he would take me to sometimes client events where it was kid friendly, type of thing. And I'm like, wow, they have picnics. I mean, it was motivating to see that, this was something I wanted to be able to do. And he had this freedom, to come and, and not have and all of that. So that was really helpful for me to see that, there was work could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it has to be. That is great. Now, do you have any recommendations for parents who are striving to teach their children to become hardworking adults, great professionals?
If they show interest in something, allow them to explore it. I did some very cool, like 1 or 2 week, and I'm not talking about summer camps, where they were actually educational. I liked school a lot. So yeah. I got to pursue and do this like computer thing back in the day when computers were so new.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have laptops with the big things. And also take them to things. So I have a few friends right now that, because I'm an entrepreneur and we travel and we do things. And he just launched, I don't know if you know Manny Lopez, but Manny just launched his son's podcast. His son is like 8 years old and he's asking for sponsorship. I sponsored him. Like, of course I'm going to, like, if you show that kind of initiative and he takes them and he shows them and he introduces them. So when he is gone, he understands who he's with and why he's doing it and how fun, and you could do this too. And I'm also a big fan of allowance. Don't give the kids everything. Have them work for it because it's more meaningful. And then they'll understand the power of what money can and can't buy. That's like for us, we understood how much it was to go to the zoo, and go to a water park or do these different things. So I think it's crucial to have a reward system in place. So when the kiddos do a good job, it's teaching them a work ethic that things aren't just handed, that it really does take a little bit of work, a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of time, but then eventually all of that pays off in the long run. So it's really good, but just include your kiddos in what you do and your work, no matter what it is, so that they understand where you are. That's the best advice I can give. Just giving of you and your time and your attention. Be there, get off the phone, and let them into your world.
That is such a hard one. And I think that we underestimate how powerful that imagery is, and they need to see us off. They need to see us engaged.
Exactly. I mean, one of the biggest things I remember, and this was my great grandma, this was my, all my family, but if I had homework or I had a project, them sitting with me, because I will be the first one to say I'm still a procrastinator. Okay. So those darn science fair projects, it would be 2 nights beforehand. And my mom is going out to buy poster board, for whatever it is. But she still sat with me and made sure. She would run my spelling words with me. My grandma would help me with my math, and because I'm strategy, business, I'm a team person. But I'm not a big numbers person. Like I can figure it out. I can look at P&Ls and diagnose a business, but I'm not going to be the gal who can calculate something in her head, that has like the human calculator.
Right there. Just bam. Got it.
So I struggled. So I struggled with that a little bit. They just try it again, and very patiently worked through the long division, worked through, geometry and all the things that just didn't come natural to me, where other things did, but they still treated it the same way and worked with me and helped me get it. And I think that's super. And that's just, those are images in my head. If I had homework over the weekend, I'd be at my dad would be doing it with me. So just take the time, especially if they're not getting something, try not to get frustrated and just work it through, because we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
My last question for you is, now having done really well professionally, I mean, you've done some incredible things with some Fortune 500s. You've got a business accelerator business now, that you're consulting with businesses and helping them get out the gate. Having done all of this, when you get to give, what is your very favorite charitable cause?
Absolutely. My goal for everything I do is I want to be a philanthropist, because I think the more you give, the universe, everything gives back threefold.
Yeah.
And I have two, but the one that I work with here in Chicago is called
We
Blessings.
let people be doubly charitable. So we're good.
Okay.
We're good. We're good.
Okay. The one here in Chicago is called Blessings. And this is a scholarship program for women over 25 who need a second chance at and we give it through educational scholarships, because it could be illness, it could be divorce, it could be anything that got in their way. And we want to give them the chance to know that it's never too late. And we want to give them that boost to get them back on their feet again. So we do that. Kit Masood is our founder, and she is 36 years old and has battled cancer. Actually is battling cancer again for the third time. Wow. So she has been back and forth. She also escaped an arranged marriage out of the Middle East.
Wow.
So, and came here alone at 17 and got her citizenship. And I'm just saying, and she's done, and she to me is one of the, I got involved because I love her and she's so inspirational, and it shows no matter what life gives you, you need to give back, because she understands what it is to have to pick herself back up. And it's so much easier when you have a few people holding a hand out to help pick you up.
And that name is Blessings?
Yeah.
I like that. I really like. Tell me more about the name, because it seems to have some significance.
It does. So it's called Blessings Through Life Lessons. Mm-hmm. So Blessings.
Got it. And so, and I take it that a lot of women use this as an opportunity to be able to get their lessons out there, and to be able to, you probably have a lot of wonderful stories from there added to the one that you just told me.
Not only do we give scholarships, we also do, because I'm also a speaker, we do talks and workshops to also help educate for free these women, like once a month, anyone who wants to come to them. So we do workshops, and we also, and I know this is for a lot of kiddos are listening, but it's, so what's your BS? And we call it your blessings story. And that is what's holding you back. And we tell these women stories about triumph, and do a lot of social media and do a lot of things to get these stories out. So it helps so folks know that they're not alone in whatever struggle that they have. So like I said, we provide all these, different things, and we're big here too in the running community. A lot of runners, every Thursday night, the running club gets together and also talks about health and how you need to keep that, because a lot of times health is what holds people back. So that's a big principle within our group also, is trying to make sure healthy lifestyles are maintained, so that isn't something that holds you back.
What is number 2?
Yeah, number 2 is actually where I met you. So I am a sponsor of the City Gala.
Ah.
So, right.
I didn't realize you were engaged in that. I love what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, remind me his name. It's, Ryan.
It's Ryan Long.
Ryan
Long.
What a nice guy.
He's incredible. And what City Gala does is the gala is kind of the big event around the Oscars, but they have city summits all over the country, and they bring in speakers and different folks to raise money for 8 different charities, and they pick different charities every year where all of the proceeds go to help. Manny Lopez, who I spoke about, his son Isaac with the podcast, Manny's one of the beneficiaries this year, and he is all about helping get foster kids into entrepreneurship and to get them a chance, because
that's beautiful.
2 out of 3 foster kiddos are going to either end up after 18 in jail, dead, or in just complete poverty. And so he's trying to change those statistics, being a product of the foster care system himself. So he's just one of the 8. And there's mental health, and there's the Underground Railroad. There's just all the different, the child sex trafficking, all of it. Ryan also teaches these nonprofits how to raise money. So he does calls, and he does all these things to help bring these organizations up to where they're really making a significant difference. And this contribution really helps lift them up, so then they're prepared after that year to really go get it. And then they bring in 8 more. So I'm a big sponsor of that also. I'm actually going to be going to New York, and because I speak on their stages also. So
They're doing wonderful work. And when I saw some of the stuff, particularly when I heard Ryan Long's story, it really gave me this incredible impression of how good he is at raising that capital and how passionate he is about making sure that those who have the means to be able to keep on just giving. And it's one of the wonderful blessings in life is to be able to give. As you said, there are great feelings that come from that,
One of the things I love everything he does, but even he is one of the kindest, when you talk about gratitude and how important gratitude is in everything that you do, and I know that I'm a sponsor, but some of these bigger companies can give a lot more than I as an individual can do, but he doesn't treat you like that. The gratitude and the overall thankfulness that he makes you feel so loved and appreciative of any little thing anyone does. He is truly someone that I think a lot of kids just could emulate his just heart and the fact that it wasn't always like that. Right. Yeah. And sometimes you have hard lessons to learn and you have to go through some things before you find your true meaning, your true passion, your true self. That all of a sudden just opens up a world of blessings is all I can say about that.
Michele, it has been a real pleasure to have you on the show. And I loved your stories, particularly the one about the carnival. That's gonna stay with me. And I wish you very well in your pursuits.
I thank you so much. This is such an honor. And thanks to everyone who's listening. Appreciate you.
Everybody else, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the interview and found useful ideas about things you can do with your kids. Be sure to check the show notes at www.choosethenickel.com for links to names, books, and other resources we discussed in today's show. Also, please subscribe to our newsletter and visit our contact page where you can give us feedback. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube, and you can follow Choose the Nickel on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We invite you to share Choose the Nickel with your friends and join us in our quest to teach kids financial freedom.